Alright, hey everyone. Hope you're having a good day. Thanks for clicking on this video. My name is James. I am a Cat 5 novice racer in the Northern Virginia area. I just started racing in March. This is my first crit race ever. I've done 2 circuit races up to this point, and I've done 2 road races. This one is called Ride Sally Ride, and it's taking place in Sterling, Virginia. And as usual, I'll put some of my numbers and the race stats up on the screen. So right off the whistle, this guy to my left here who just took off, his name is Ted. He wanted to keep the race fast in the beginning, so he got a clean clip in and he basically just hammered from the beginning. I didn't get such a clean clip in, so I basically just went hard in maybe 8th or 10th wheel for the first lap or 2. You can see that the road surface is wet. It rained overnight, and it was actually forecasted to rain during our race. But what you'll see during the race is that it actually doesn't rain. So it actually stays relatively dry, which was nice. So it made for a slightly faster and safer race. If you take a look at the course in the upper right, this is basically a triangle. There are 3 sweeping turns. You can actually pedal through all of these turns here. In the beginning of the race, because the road surface was wet and we were all getting acclimated to the speeds of the turns, or at least I was coasting through the turns and then pedaling hard out of them. But as the race went on and I got more comfortable, and I saw other racers do this as well, there's much more pedaling through the turns. I think each of these laps is about 0.6 miles, which comes out to about 1.5 minutes per lap. So in the time that we had to race, I think we ended up doing 22 laps total. Coming into the race, I was actually feeling pretty good. 2 weeks ago, I had my best result ever at the Carl Dolan circuit race. I got 2nd place in that one out of, I believe, 50 some riders, which was actually pretty sweet. And that definitely provided some validation for the training that I've been doing. And it also provided more motivation for me to train. Now, the negative side of it is that it creates a little bit of expectation now. And I noticed that before this race, there was a little voice in my head that would say, "Oh, dude, you're gonna get podium today." And I just kept telling that voice to shut up so that I could remain humble and focused. Because at this point in my racing journey, all I'm looking to do is stay safe, have fun, and learn so that I can keep improving. So I think Ted was on the front for the first 2 laps of this race. The pace is starting to slow down a little bit. So what I decided to do was to keep it fast. On this section here on the back stretch, this fast downhill section, I took it into the slight uphill. And on that rise where everyone starts bunching up and slowing down, I basically hit it hard and got some speed differential. I gave it a little bit more gas out of the turn. At this point in the race, I was just trying to keep it fast. I obviously was not going to go for a 30-minute or so breakaway. That is definitely not my style. I'm not strong enough to do that. But you can definitely see that the pack is chasing. So the people on the front of the pack are definitely doing some work to catch back up to me. I sit in around 250 to 300 watts or so, and then eventually even less when I'm on the front. So I let the group catch back up. I eventually fall back in the pack to recover, and I wait for another moment later in the race to either attack or bridge a gap, which happens about halfway through the race at lap 13. So this is the end of lap 12. I have been recovering up to this point. I see that there is one rider in the neon kit that went off the front, so I take this opportunity to move up on the back stretch here. And then I also see here that Ted has gone off the front as well. So I put in a hard dig to bridge up. Yeah, so in looking back on this footage and analyzing this situation, this was probably the biggest waste of energy that I had in the race.
And the reason I say that is because situationally, I should have identified that Ted had been doing a relatively large amount of work during the race, so the likelihood of him being able to contribute to a breakaway would probably be slightly less. Not only that, before I put in this effort, I was actually feeling relatively fresh because I was somewhat recovered from my previous effort on the second and third lap. And if I'm feeling relatively fresh, I can be relatively certain that everybody else is probably feeling pretty fresh too. So the chance of them chasing back a break or an attack is probably a little higher than usual. And lastly, at this point in the race, we are probably a little bit over halfway through the race, which means we might have around 15 to 18 minutes left in the race. And I don't see Gideon Schmidt up the road, so I can be relatively certain that anyone who was off the front wasn't going to time trial to victory. And it just so happens that that effort bit me in the butt, because about 6 to 7 minutes later, with 5 laps to go, because I was still somewhat recovering from that effort, I ended up way out of position to respond to what ended up being the winning break. So this is Fong and Ryan. These are the two guys who made the late breakaway with 5 laps to go and were able to stay away for the rest of the race. Huge kudos to them for going 1 and 2. They were definitely working together well during the race. And actually, before the race started, I knew both of them were very strong riders. In this event last year in 2021, Fong actually came in second. So if I had to go back and do this exact same race again, a game plan I definitely could have had would have been to mark these two riders and conserve my energy so that I could respond to whatever they did. So this is the thing, one of my favorite parts of racing is that I get to analyze what happened and learn from my mistakes and my experiences. And I think that's one exciting thing about racing, and actually life is kind of like that too. So if any of you out there are a little bit hesitant to race because of the risk of injury, or because you feel like you're not fit enough, which for me are two personal reasons why I put off racing till a little bit later too, I say just hop into it and give it a try and see how it goes. Because if you're anything like me, you'll definitely enjoy it a lot. And there's also more to racing than just good results. And there's also more to racing than just being the strongest rider out there, because the strongest rider doesn't always win. It's usually the rider who conserves energy the best. Which is also the reason why I didn't do better in this race. Alright, let's hop forward a little bit to the last lap. Like I alluded to before, Fong and Ryan were able to stay away from the pack, and they ended up going 1-2. For the last few laps, I was probably sitting somewhere between 15th and 20th wheel. And starting from about 3 laps to go, I knew I had to move up and to be somewhere in the top 10 wheels. And I really don't know why I didn't put a little bit more effort into positioning myself towards the front. But anyway, here I am with 1 lap to go, still in pretty much the same position, so I know I need to move up. And this is a good lesson to learn, because as the pace is much higher on the final lap because everyone is going much harder, it would have been much better for me to move up with 3 or 4 laps to go and then maintain that position, because the pace back then was slower than this final lap pace. As you can see, my heart rate is already pretty pinned, and the interesting thing is that during the race, I actually didn't feel like my heart rate was this high. But in hindsight, it now totally makes sense as to why I wasn't able to put out as much power as I thought I would be able to in the final couple hundred meters of the race. Anyway, on this final backstretch, even before this race began, I knew that tactically I needed to get to the final corner first, but because of the pace and because I didn't have anything left, I settle into the final corner in 6th wheel. And these positions essentially become our finishing positions when we cross the line. Alright, that's the race, and I get 8th place here. I know I definitely could have done better if I wasn't doing some random things. I definitely could have been more quote-unquote boring and sat in the pack and conserved energy for the whole race. And maybe I'll be a little bit more patient and do that from now on. But anyway, I'm always open to hearing your thoughts, and you can put them in the comment section below. There are also going to be links to other videos in the description. And if you enjoy this type of content, you can like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. But as always, only if you want to, because nobody's going to make you do it. Alright, have a good one. Bye.